Hey friends, and happy summer. We hope you are doing well, and we're looking forward to another podcast here on some industry data on the state of workflow learning. It's about time. We are looking forward to sharing some results, hearing what you think, and beginning a dialogue about how to do this very, very powerful discipline even that much better. Give a listen, friends. Thanks. Welcome back to another Performance Matters podcast. So excited you're joining us again. And I want to apologize about the delay since our last one. It has been a crazy spring. And so it is nice to be back involved and to be back to our podcast once again. We just finished up our 5 Homes Need Summit here in Charlotte. It was really wonderful, but time consuming. So apologies about that, friends. We will be back in a much better cadence shortly with these Performance Matters podcasts, and looking forward to dialogue down the road, a little more on some themes and topics coming up. This episode of the podcast, we're very excited to debut our State of Workflow Learning Industry results. I hope many of you on this podcast were able to participate, but we found that there's a gap in L&D. We've gone out and looked at research. There's obviously tons on AI lately. Obviously, lots of long-standing research on the effect of training and methodology and so on. Surprise, surprise, we found that the world of workflow learning, 5 moments of need as a methodology, is lacking. I know that some of our dear friends, we've had Katie Coates on this in the past, Dr. Katie Coates, who's done her dissertation and her work in performance support and others, found that the research is very lacking. And with that, a misunderstanding of what the state of the industry looks like. So we decided to try to take a stab at this and see if we could make this an annual event. So we went out to you in our L&D world via a number of social media sites and others, and got 71 of you, which is spectacular, to take part in this first stab at the State of the Workflow Learning survey and results. Now, friends, we want to be careful here. This is a first stab, so we want to appreciate your patience and give us a little grace on the questions and how deep we were able to get. But friends, we just felt we had to have something. There literally is nothing or very little in our industry to find out how workflow learning is doing. What's your effort? What's the impact? What's the budget? What does a team look like? There is literally nothing that we could find. So we felt it'd be powerful to start this. And hopefully each year we can build on it and have some comparative data as we go year over year and journey further into this world. So today's podcast is on sharing this first result. And we're very excited about how things came out, frankly, and the amount of insights that we gained from this. Going to share some of that in this episode. And we sure do hope that you'll participate, frankly, in this year's research. If you're interested in adding to the survey with more data and participating, you'll get the full report, not just the overview today. And again, hopefully you'll be a part of future surveys as we move into this in the years to come. So let me give you a little background on what we pulled. Again, 71 organizations from across the world participated, and pretty much from every vertical imaginable. We had 15 different verticals represented, everything from aerospace through to telecom and insurance, business, government, manufacturing, agriculture, entertainment. Really remarkable the number of organizations that participated, and some interesting size groups that participated in as far as the L&D teams are concerned. So let me do a little bit of demographics to start, and then I'll get into some of the really interesting insights and returns that came back from this. So as far as L&D teams go, this is probably no surprise to you. The majority of folks were in a 1 to 10 size L&D team, and that was over 50% of the folks that participated. Not surprising, even large enterprises, I'm sure many of you know who are listening, do not have large L&D teams. The next largest was around 11 to 20. And after that, about the other 40% left were 20 or larger. We only had 2 that responded that had a 51 or higher size L&D team. So the majority were between 1 and 10 or 1 to 20 as far as their teams are concerned. Now, makeup of the folks who participated, we had about 11 or 10 different roles who responded, all the way through CLOs, which was the smallest of the group that participated, just over 10%. But over 50% of each role that participated were learning directors, managers of L&D. So that's pretty decent that those were each over 50% of the respondents in those roles But then we also had instructional designers and even some trainers. But the bulk of the folks who responded were in the learning director, instructional designer, manager, and also the trainer role. Now, let's get a little meatier. So the next question we got into, how often do you folks have a seat at the table? And this is really interesting results, very promising, we felt. Although you'll see a twist as we get a bit deeper into the data, but over 50% said that they have a direct interaction or seat at the table with the stakeholders that they participate with. That's powerful. And in fact, some of the time, it was another 40%. So 90% felt that some to most of the time, as an L&D team, they had a seat at the table to interact with the senior stakeholders and folks in their organization, which is incredibly powerful. And when we asked the degree to which their team, that's an important pivot, their team felt they had a mature level or understanding of workflow learning or 5 moments of need, over 53% said they were above average. They were actively moving towards implementing job performance support, workflow learning, 5 moments of need as a main part of their delivery. And the next after that was just a level below, another 30%. So 80% were actively moving towards or had shifted away from a traditional training mindset. Now, again, friends, obviously this is a bit of a skewed audience. We did put it out to the general populace. We had any L&D team could participate. We didn't go just toward folks that we knew had a bent or leaned a little bit toward 5 moments of workflow learning. But we do agree and understand that it is a bit of a bias sample because of the folks who may want to have participated in a workflow learning survey. But we did get folks who were not so much directed that way. But again, 80%, pretty sizable group, as well as, like we said a moment ago, over 50 to 90 who had a significant audience in which they interact with from a business stakeholder perspective. Here's where things get interesting. So with those powerful pivots, which did surprise us, honestly, as we get deeper into the organizational shift, the degree to which we really are moving not just our L&D teams, not even our deliverables, not even the stakeholders that we get to talk to this about, much more towards a workflow first, 5 moments delivery. The degree to which the organization uses a performance first approach in developing their employees. In other words, the way the organization sees L&D's responsibility or looks at the professional development of their folks, L&D or otherwise, well over 50% still said that they really see training first. They're not so much from the ask side of the formula, performance focused yet. In fact, about 70% were teetering towards about half, but over 50% were not. Small percentage of solutions put performance first from the ask perspective, meaning even though we have the attention of the stakeholders, our organizations and our L&D teams have made a significant shift towards thinking this way first and delivering on these kinds of solutions, we still fall short when it comes to the organization asking us for these things. So a lot of work still to be done there, friends, from the sales internal to L&D to the sale of this, acceptance of this, the ask for this from the team, from the organization is still a bit down. So these next couple things shouldn't surprise you. So then what percentage of your budget's dedicated towards informal workflow learning versus formal instruction? Well, here's the sad part. It's money where your mouth is, right? 90%, the largest, almost 40% of respondents said that 90% of their budget was formal, 10% workflow learning. Another 25% said, well, we're creeping up there. 25% of our budget is workflow learning, but still 75% is on the training first. Give me e-learning, give me 5 days of whatever, ahead of asking for performance first deliverables. That means altogether, almost 60%, friends, are 75% or higher. If you go to 50%, where it's half and half, another 25%, that's really kind of discouraging, honestly. But again, it's the journey, friends, right? We have to first believe in it in our groups. We have to make them capable and raise their ability to deliver this. We have to be able to articulate it, get the seat at the table. But we are at this major tipping point where the organization has come along with us and the budget to follow. So definitely work to be done there in that area. Now, digital coach, right? The main deliverable of workflow learning. Well, surprise, surprise. 70% said they're not able to or allowed to or have been able to sell the digital coach as a primary tip of the sword versus training. 30% still do training first. Are able to get a digital coach in first. The other 70% are still asked and have to do training and then add a digital coach if they can at all. Some said no. I mean, a lot said no. So we haven't moved past understanding to budget to deliverable. So lots of work to do there in the sales side, lots of work to do in the understanding side. It's so interesting, folks, and it is encouraging the degree to which we have swung. I can't tell you the years, if not decades, that we have spent trying to lift the industry on the workflow learning as an acronym, WFL, right? Workflow learning, and as a discipline within our recognized industry and tools. But we still have to bring those enterprises along, friends, in the value and be allowed to have these deliverables be what they are. Now, this is where I think we have to make the pivot and begin to get more buy-in, because the reality is, what business metrics are you tracking? Friends, we are still woefully lacking in the degree to which we have measurement on the impact in which we are helping the workflow get better, helping performance get better. Surprise, surprise, very limited to none is almost 40%. I mean, none at all. None at all is 40%. We're not doing business measures. We haven't moved into the workflow. We're not being asked or maybe allowed to do performance measures. But friends, here's the deal. How can you, when all you have or all you're being asked to do or allowed to do is training? Training does not get you a direct performance ROI impact. It just does not. We've talked about this in past podcasts. It's a part of the journey. It's 2 of the 5 moments, new and more. But it alone, as a measurable impact on business, the degree to which it lives in the workflow, it just literally doesn't. So, guys, this is where I think we have to go back to the organization and start beginning to tip the scale. If they want us to do business impact, if they want us to show measurable results with those that are sent to training, but more importantly, go back to the workflow and do the work, we have to be allowed to broaden our net. We have to be able to add workflow learning, a digital coach to our deliverables, because those things live in the workflow, are measured while people perform, are accessed when people have apply, solve, or change issues. Training is not. So if we want to move past the ask of training and get into performance first, I think the pivot on business measures, the world we live in today, the value that we add, the results that people want, lines of business ask for out of training, we have to be allowed to do performance first. So productivity gain, time savings, for those that were doing it, were fairly high. But again, back to the stats, 70% were doing very limited altogether. 40% were doing none at all. None at all. So, work to be done, friends. Now, AI. Talk about a stake in the ground. We're going to have a whole podcast series on this shortly, as well as other things. This will be the pivot, friends. This will be the pivot. AI is in the workflow. AI is in the workplace. AI is directly impacting performance. That is our ticket. That is what will get us into workflow learning as a door to open, where a digital coach, agents, these other things that are being brought up will move along. So we just asked 2 simple questions. To what degree is your current learning deliverables incorporating AI as a development of content tool? Internal L&D, helping us make content, kind of the largest, 10 to 25%, almost 50% of you said that 10 to 20% of your content was being generated and supported by AI. So 50% of the asks said that 10 to 25% of their content was being generated by AI. Another 20% said 25 to 50 is getting there, but not half. 25 to 50, but not half or more. The percentages drop off significantly beyond that. So not surprised we're here because of generative nature of AI, but still a little bit lacking. Now, when it comes to what about AI delivering performance, delivering on content? Well, friends, if we're not being allowed to do workflow learning, if we're not being allowed to build a digital coach, if we haven't shifted the questions and the asks from those we support, the stakeholders we have a seat with, to one of performance, then guess what? We're not delivering via AI at all, because AI is very workflow based and it's going to do some powerful things there. So in this delivery via AI, workflow wise in 5 moments, 85% said none. 0. We're not being asked. We're not being allowed. We're probably not playing very significantly here. The next sliver, 10 to 25%, was only 11% of you who answered. 11% of the 71 organizations worldwide that responded to this via L&D teams, only 10%, 11% are delivering via AI at all. 85% are doing nothing. So friends, a couple ways to look at this, right? I think it's a greenfield. This is a remarkable time for our organizations, for L&D, because of the tipping point we're approaching. We've got our teams there. We've got a seat at the table. We are educated in the methodology. All of the pointers are going there. Is the organization there yet? No. They're still entrenched, as we've seen for generations, in a training-first approach. But AI is coming along, and it is the way in which we can pivot and get towards those business measure results. So learnings here, we're clearly ready. We are clearly shifting there. The 2 pivots that can get us there, business results. You want business results? Let us participate and be in the business. Let us be in the workflow. We know how to and can do that. AI, the power of that platform, much more on that shortly. That is a way in which we can entree into where it lives, which is in the work. We need to be architects and a part of that. And we need to be at the table with that conversation around helping it to promote productivity and workflow learning, workflow design, rapid workflow analysis, critical skills analysis. These are essential to help AI be effective in the way it looks at structured data and structured input. We know how to design for that structure that lives in performance. Very exciting. Friends, we hope this has been helpful. We're excited about the data. We'll hope you'll participate next year. Friends, looking forward to future podcasts, much more on AI, much more on the power and growth of workflow learning. We're very excited about where we are positioned and looking forward to having further conversations. Thanks, friends. Appreciate you. Again, sorry for the delay. We are glad to be back and much, much more to come. Take care, friends. Be well. Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 moments of need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on Twitter using my Twitter handle at BMOSH, as well as our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.